YouTube, welcome to day 4. So this is kind of a session that starts with the idea of, what was the word? Telos. So when you think telos, what springs to mind straight away? For me, I didn't have a clue. So there's a bit of a theme to this particular video where we lean into the world of AI because let's face it, AI is a huge part of our lives now, whether or not we choose to believe that idea. And when we lean into the space of change is inevitable and we are coming from personal growth, wanting to continue to learn, continue to expand our thoughts, our processes, the way we think, the opportunities, it surely makes more sense to think about an idea of how do I leverage AI to work for me or with me as we progress into the future together. Because it's very much that belief or idea that if we choose to not embrace AI, will we be left behind to the point where everybody else who chooses to implement it or use it, leverage it to their advantage now by default goes slightly ahead. So again, it's just an idea, just suggestions. I myself are choosing to incorporate and leverage AI into what I do more and more. I choose to use ChatGPT. Yes, there are lots of alternatives out there. However, the experience and the ease of using it for myself so far have helped. And I just, yeah, it just works and it makes sense. So telos, if you were to run through telos, define what it means, it's actually a Greek word, okay? And it really means this idea of the end, the aim, the purpose, or the ultimate goal. So again, it's capturing those 5 key elements or 5 key words, bringing it under one umbrella called telos, assuming that I've pronounced it correctly as well. So that's what this session was all about. It's that telos. It's what are we trying to achieve as a coach in my what's the word? From my perspective currently, this is what I'm trying to establish, create awareness around, is what it is I'm actually here to serve, what that looks like, who's my audience. So that's where this video, day 4, leans into that. What is my purpose? What's my aim? What is it, the solution I'm offering? How am I trying to help or create awareness around who it is exactly that I am here to help? Potentially, and hopefully you as an audience watching. So that was the first thing. And it's this idea, and this is one of the quotes that was written, which I think was a fascinating idea. And it was, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. So you cannot connect the dots looking forward. So straight away, this springs to mind, well, it's a quite a nice exercise and something that when you put different intentions to it can create huge awareness. But if you simply look back on anything in life, it's like a game. So I achieved this and it led to this. I met this person, it led to this opportunity. That opportunity led to this, to that. So it's this idea that we are always in a position, if you were to pause and really think about things, able to connect the dots of what it is that we're trying to achieve or what it is that, links our choices to where we currently are in today's world. That's a really nice idea in terms of we can't look forward to a certain degree and say, right, I'm going to use that dot there, that dot there, that dot there, that dot there to get where it is that I need to go. We could try to plan and create those opportunities, of course, but they're not necessarily always guaranteed. So it's an interesting thought process of do we look backwards, do we stay present, or do we start to aspire towards the future? And the idea here is what we're trying to create is this idea of purpose, aim, ambition. What were the other words there? Our end goal, our ultimate, what we're trying to achieve is leveraging and using our past in terms of experiences, in terms of what we've learned, qualifications we've done, the studying, the life experience, everything that we capture and we tend to offer and leverage to our advantage. We're now connecting those dots and we're putting it down on paper to say, you know what, from my experience, I prefer this. From my experience, I'm really strong in this area, or I feel connected to offer this in that space. So hopefully you can see that this idea is that we are just going to spend a few moments kind of going, right, how do we create enough awareness and clarity around what it is that we actually are offering and who we're offering it to, and what does that actually look like? There's lots of work out there, and I'm sure you'll see lots of videos. It's really important to establish this and almost create that ideal customer, that client avatar, that version of the person that you are trying to solve, trying to help, trying to support, offer them solutions. Often, a suggestion in this space as well is that am I where I am now because I helped a past version of Seb, so let's say 18, 24 months ago, and actually, where was I in that moment? What was I feeling like? What was life like? And what did I need to do to get from that version to the present day version of myself? So what did I go through? What did I learn? What videos did I watch? What habits did I create? What did I start to practice? A lot of that, I would say, is heavily mindset orientated, how we think, challenging beliefs, but ultimately it was creating awareness and starting to make better choices. To the point now, you start to then leverage and lean into that space and really kind of own those experiences. So the idea was, again, so we're just reading through the notes as always. So it was, you know, create your own timeline and connect the dots, which I think is really, really important. And this is an exercise I often talk through with my clients. It's that idea of if you were to go back into your life now and just pick all those dots or highlight all those decisions that you've made, okay, and bring it up to the present time. So you could do this over the past. So it is an exercise of awareness looking back. But if you think about the very basics, it's, you know, what school did I go to? What did I choose to study? What relationships did I have? Where did I go on holiday? What sports did I try to achieve? You know, what jobs did I apply for? You know, what concerts did I go and see? All those decisions and those choices that you've made, if you were to bring that to where you currently are in life, answer this question: who created your current reality? Who created the life you are currently in? And hopefully you get this realization that it was you through the choices that you've made, nobody else. So it's really important just to kind of own and create awareness around that idea. And if you believe that suggestion to be true and pause, you could probably, I would say, predict your future 5, 10, 15 years, okay? Because you're going to follow a similar pattern. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's not a good thing, it's just what it is. However, if you look forward now and you think, you know what, I'm not sure I like what that looks like, then it's an opportunity for you now to bring that awareness and start to think, hang on a second, can I change this? Here, sitting here, 100% yes, you can. And how do we change that? By making better choices or different choices or choices that are going to further your experience in this lifetime. Okay. Equally, if you're looking at the 10, 15 years in the future and you think, you know what, that's amazing, I can't wait, then the invitation is purely just to continue as you are. Because this is your experience. You are the lead actor in your movie, nobody else. So the sooner you get into that space and the sooner you start to realize and own that, I'm telling you, the opportunities and the way that you look or your outlook on things will be completely different. So, what were the things? So, it was this idea, and the exercise kind of went into if you were to look back, and we're connecting the dots, still kind of this theme, and you were to list down now 3 major wins. So, what things in your past have you done that you thought, you know what, I'm so proud of, and they are huge? So, you would list down those 3 things. Okay. So, for myself, it was my own personal journey from where I started during COVID to where we are now. So, in terms of changing the way I think, my mindset, huge, is one of the things that I put down there. And I would link that also to this idea of belief. Saying this now, recording it, I didn't write it down at the time, but belief is huge. But belief in myself, belief in knowing that I've got the ability to respond and change the direction, effectively dictate my path on a route and a future that I want to create, that I believe I am here to achieve, which involves helping people effectively in the very simplest terms. So that was one. The second major wins I had was children. So I had three children. So becoming a father is huge. But now really leaning into the first one with that mindset of how do I now start to be aware of how I parent, how I communicate, how I try to help and support their growth and their way of thinking, offering as much enthusiasm and encouragement to the point where they are really fine-tuning who they are and what their personalities are, to the point where they know that I am there for support, regardless of what they do. And it's just to, again, not tell them the outcome or tell them expectations or you have to do this or you have to do that, but just guide them, knowing that if they fall over, pick yourself up. Yes, but equally, I'm there to pick you up if you need that, if that kind of makes sense. So if you're a parent, I'm sure this will hopefully resonate a little bit more. If you're not, if you're aspiring to be a parent, that's a good conversation I would recommend you have in the sense of what type of parent am I going to be? What is my role as a parent? Am I here to just tell them what to do? Or am I here more of a guide? Because I think one of the big distinctions that I've learned, or my way of thinking, is that my children, to a certain point, okay, are my responsibility until they become adults by law, of course. But equally, their actions, their choices, everything they choose to do has nothing to do with me. Okay, an example. So I've got a son, huge football fan growing up. So does my son want to be a footballer? Does he enjoy playing football? In my head, prior to, prior to him being born, I would say yes, he ticks all those boxes. We're going to go to football matches together. We're going to play in the park together. We're going to kick a ball around together because that's what I feel in terms of my value I can bring. Okay. However, what if my son decided to grow up and had no interest in football? Doesn't want to run around the park. If that is the scenario, how does that now change me as a parent and how I look into that space? So let's say he wanted to take up a sport that I knew nothing about, basketball. Am I now going to dismiss that and create a barrier because I know nothing about basketball? Or am I now going to see this as an opportunity? Say, you know what? I can grow here. I can learn a little bit about the sport. I can practice. And we can go through this experience together to create that connection, build, make sure it works. Or I can create distance. I can create judgment. I can create right or wrong. Yeah. And I'm sure you can understand there's lots of way that you can navigate that path to the point where you try to force him to like football. You try to make sure that he's not allowed to go to basketball. I'm not taking you here. I'm not doing that. We can create so much resistance. But then the wider, broader idea is, am I doing this for me or am I doing it for my son? And I think you only get that from the awareness from asking these questions. So I think it's hugely important to understand where you are, your role as a parent, and what that actually means to yourself, how you define that. But more importantly, like everything in life, it's the action, it's the steps, it's the conversations that we have, it's how we choose to communicate and choose to really set the expectation of our roles and what it is that we're trying to achieve in most scenarios. Yeah. As always, slightly off topic, but I think that's really important narrative to drag to kind of deliver at this stage is early. And equally, another thing, side note, is I sit here often and I just trust. So again, quite spiritual, quite woo-woo, but I just sit here and there's no script. Like I said, there's a few bullet points, notes, okay, in terms of what it is that I'm going to talk about here, but I just trust my intuition. I just trust that the universe is going to provide, and I'm just going to talk. And I just feel the energy. And anytime there's some sort of positivity, and I think, whoa, this is amazing, I'm just going to lean into that space. You, as the audience, are going to take what works for you, and you're not going to listen. You're going to forget about the rest. And I'm okay with that because I'm not sitting here trying to dictate to a degree what you need to do, what you need to take away, what you need to learn. I'm just here to offer my experience with the intention that you will find this valuable. That's it. No pressure. Just simply me recording my experience for you. So then you have an opportunity to watch it and take away what works. Simple as. And you are very welcome, as always, to reach out to me, add some comments, ask some questions, and I will continue to just share my experience, offer what I feel I have in terms of my value, in terms of the way I explain things, the way that I think, and because I really feel that there is a disconnect in how most people I speak to, the way that they view the world, the way that they view themselves. And it's very important for me that people understand and believe and really know that they have the power to change their lives. They have the power to really create meaning and understanding and experiences and make the best of every situation by fine-tuning the way that they see things, their outlook on life, and just challenge the direction or the intention of where their thoughts are. I really believe that to be true. And that's why I'm here, helping you to think again, always asking a question. I believe honestly that there's always a better question. And I appreciate I digress, but hey, this is the world that I live in. And if we are ever, fortunate enough to have a conversation, that's exactly what you'll experience firsthand. So what you see effectively is what you get. So going back, so mindset was a major win for me. Becoming a father, having children is a major win for me. And number three, which I wrote down more in current terms, is Inceptivism. So this is a philosophy that I've created initially to come up with a concept or an idea to help people, such as yourselves who's watching this, in terms of how do we create a structure or a way of living where you can be more in alignment than not. And it's all internal work. It's all about choices. It's all about just really kind of leveraging and putting yourself back to thinking about you and how you choose to show up in the world. Okay. And then what I soon realized straight away is that this is actually something that I have been doing and I needed this, or I created Inceptivism for myself. And like everything in life, it's not a program. It's not you have to do this, A, B, C. This is the right path. This is wrong. No, it's not that. It's a suggestion. It's a philosophy. It's an idea that if we start to follow these and we start to believe in these steps, then we are going to empower ourselves to start looking inwards, start taking responsibility for ourselves and making better choices. And by default, we're going to show up more as our true self. We're going to start to live in alignment. So we are going to start to benefit. And it goes, quite spiritual in the sense that if we focus on ourselves with the intention and the belief that when we are at our best selves, everyone benefits, equal to the more I focus on me, I'm putting out that positive energy I'm going to attract. So what I put out, I attract. So there's lots of kind of core hidden messages, but everything within this and my terminology and the way that I talk is all very intentional. There's lots of thought process behind it. And I truly believe that if you were to body these ideas and create your own philosophy or your own culture for life that comes from within you, you're only going to be successful. And you're going to start to really enjoy life and really start to make things, come alive for you. And that's all I wish. I really want to just empower people to look inwards and find all the answers because I genuinely believe that's where they live, in you, not externally, not like the world's presenting, in you. Better questions, focusing on yourself. How do I show up? How do I really be the best version of myself more consistently? So that's Inceptivism. That's the core if you want to know more about it. keep watching the videos, book a one-to-one, and we can, talk for many, many hours on ideas, embrace it, and, brainstorm all of those wonderful fun things. So, three, so they were the three major wins. So, mindset, belief, becoming a father, creating this idea of my own personal philosophy, Inceptivism, which I'm now embracing, going into fear, building that courage and saying, you know what, let me share this with the world. Because I genuinely believe this can help many, many people. So then the next question is, what were the major lessons? So not necessarily failures, but lessons looking back. So what are those? So again, we're going back to connect the dots. Okay, what are the three major lessons that you have learned in your life? So for me, the first one I wrote down was debt. So when I first got into this space, it's let's just focus on coaching. Let's just do what I love doing. I'm great at it. People get good value. It feels good. I feel good. And then you get this idea that, right, I'm just going to go on LinkedIn, create a profile. I'm now a coach and I'm now going to wait for everybody to contact me. And of course, nothing happens. Change a title, add a couple of posts, nothing happens. Wow, big realization. Why is that? Is it me? Is it my content? Have I done something wrong? Maybe this isn't right. Maybe I should just go and get another job. Didn't work out. I tried it, didn't work out. But if you were to pause and kind of really create awareness, what have we actually done? Have we tried? Have we learned? Have we put ourselves out there? Because if you're looking in, and I could talk hours about this, I want to try and keep it short, is nobody knows who you are. And that's okay. Because why would they? Think about it. Authority, you need to be earned. Respect, you need to build relationships. You need to have conversations. You need to develop that trust, that authenticity, that community feel before people invest. So if you're not investing in yourself, difficult for people to invest in you. Yeah. The expression people buy from people. So if we believe this to be true, how do we tell the people who we are, what we offer? And it's about consistency, which I think is really important about this. It's how do we pick one thing and just be as best as we can about that one thing. Let's not create 50 million offers and I work with this person and that person and blah, 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 blah. It's how do we fine tune that, keep it things really, really simple. Simple steps to the success. Okay. So debt was a huge one for me because when I started, I was like, right, how do I get clients? I know what I'll do. I'll just pay someone to get me clients. Simple. And on reflection, I thought, well, this is a great idea. So I managed to get hold of a company. It wasn't my intention to start off with, but I kind of, on reflection, was kind of sold to. It's fine. I've learned from that. And then we stepped into that space, and I was very honest, as I am. I don't really have a niche. I don't really have an ideal client. This is what I'm offering. Don't worry, this will come. I was told everything will be okay. And week after week after week, I didn't really see a turn of value. There's lots more insides of this, but that's irrelevant at this point to the point where it always came back to, yeah, but it's now your fault. You don't know who your customer is. You don't know who your target is. You don't know this. I don't know who to get for you. And the narrative or the relationship started to change. And I was like, whoa. But yeah, debt is huge. I would say that don't jump into the deep end from my experience. It doesn't work. And if coaching is part-time for you or full-time to the point where, and you're not consistently getting clients after your first, I don't even know, 4 to 6 weeks, I would say go get a job. Part-time job. You need some sort of income, but know that that job is not what you do, it's not who you are. It's just there to serve a role, which is to support this project. It's to support this dream. It's to support this ambition. If you can get a job in a similar field doing a similar thing, then well, great. But sometimes I feel that you don't always need to create a business. You could potentially create a role within a business where you're still offering this with the view that you're building up enough experience, enough income, enough support to then go into this full time. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, I feel like that's completely off topic. However, that's one of the major lessons, debt. And one of the big mindset shifts I have is how do I support this growth? How do I reinvest in this business? How do I go from this idea that I've actually created a job for myself as opposed to an actual business? And what does that look like? And what's the distinction between the two? And how do we overcome that? And you learn, like everything. Every failure is an opportunity to learn, to grow, to embrace, to thank the universe for that lesson. Let's hold no grudges. I don't hold a grudge with anyone. I wish everybody the best of luck. It's just that we met because we were due to meet. However, the outcome wasn't as expected because I needed to learn that lesson. And I really, really believe that to be true. Not at the time, because then naturally the stress and the conversations and the next steps after that, you're like, whoa, this is huge. But you need to experience those. You need to have that real raw emotion to be able to embrace it, to grow, to overcome and say, you know what? Wow, that was shit. That was stressful, sleepless nights. But you know what? I needed to learn that lesson. And I need to, for my own growth, know that the universe is testing me. And if I can overcome that, then I'm definitely going to be better positioned for what next comes my way. It's a huge opportunity to even reframe the failures that we're looking at as opportunities to say, right, what was the lesson? What was I meant to learn? And if you find yourself, I believe, if you find yourself continuously seeing old or similar situations, and we just keep doing the same default things, then my invitation there is, are we not learning the lesson because it keeps happening and we keep doing the same stuff? So maybe that's on us, and we need to look at that from a different perspective. Career choices was the second one, in terms of the lessons. And this really is kind of, I lived most of my life after becoming an adult just copying people, people pleasing, huge in my life. So it was just, let's just get drunk, let's just enjoy ourselves, let's see who could drink the most, let's see who could, dance the most, do the most stupid things. If I look back on reflection, I would say, whoa, what an embarrassment. I mean, where I am now, because I'm not doing anything for me. I'm just doing it for other people. And it's huge. And I still have elements of that in my life to people please. And it's a big piece of work because there's so many beliefs there. But over that experience, yes, I had great fun. Yes, I had great friends. Yes, I had great relationships. But equally, how many of them did I choose? How many of them did I want to do? Or how many of them was I just trying to build up this idea of a character of Seb does this and he only does this and he's always going to say yes and he loves to go drinking, he's up for it and oh, huge. And that also led into the idea of my career choices. So, how many times did I not necessarily go the next step, or I only took a job because people told me to take a job, or actually, you know what, you're not suited for that, you're suited for this. I was letting their judgment, their own thought process, their opinions dictate where my life navigated to. Yeah, you apply for a job, your dream job, you don't get it. Then you speak to someone, they go, no, you're not qualified, you need to do something else. So naturally, you take their, depending on how position they are and how much authority you give them, you take their advice on and you go down that path. Yeah, I can't remember how many times I changed what I was going to study at school, what career I wanted to have, what job and what it meant like, and it changed all the time. Overwhelm, huge, a bit not too dissimilar from my own journey when it comes to coaching in terms of finding a niche. Overwhelm, but I'm really good at this, but I really enjoy that. But actually, I had success there, and actually, I don't like that anymore. And that really worked for me, and then that really worked for me. So, to put it in perspective, when I started this journey, I would say I was miserable, I was overweight, I wasn't healthy, I was very negative, too much drinking, lots of arguing, real kind of not all bad, but negative influences for me inside as a person and physically. So when you overcome that, a little bit of the journey. So, you get involved in breath work. You understand the importance of being present, living for today, embracing the cold, coming over that mindset is just water. And then you realize you do that consistently. So then every time you're in a high pressure situation now, what happens? It's just cold. It's just water. It's just whatever it is. But how I choose to now react is a lot more controlled. It's a lot more understood. And it's a lot more me coming out. Huge. Meditation, breath work, creating awareness, thinking about things, but thinking about what's the best process to follow. Am I shouting? Am I overreacting? Am I having real conversations, not shouting at each other, where I am just explaining how I feel, nothing about you? I'm explaining about the reasons why I'm choosing to do things, the reasons why I'm now trying to be this person, make these decisions, changing my diet, fasting, creating more exercise, having more focused sleep, trying not to over stimulate the brain in terms of watching mobile phones and blue light and that world. There are so many things. Choosing to go on courses, choosing to become a certified life coach, choosing to then learn about hypnotherapy, rapid transformation. How do I learn and embrace so many skills to the point where I can now help people? How do I leverage my career? How do I get that next opportunity? How do I do this? But it's all about flipping the switch. So it's all about taking responsibility. Yeah. Being responsible, able to respond to me, to myself, to my true being. The only way you can do that is start by creating that awareness, looking in, finding all the answers to your questions. Not external, internal. In here. This is where you need to start. So it's about having that journey, going through so much to now being in a position where I can sit here and say, you know what, I have experienced a wealth of knowledge. How do I now leverage that and give that back to yourselves? Give it back to a community, give it back to an audience who are in a similar place to where I used to be, and I'm on this journey. But equally, we're on a journey together, and I'm continuing to grow. And the more conversations I have with people, the more you can refine a coaching conversation, the more you can refine a product, the more you can refine what it is that I really offer to people. So it's this idea that we're not creating a program from scratch and saying, you know, I've got the best solution in the world, I'm going to make it, then I'm going to put it out to the world, and then realize that nobody wants it. There's no demand. So it's how do we rephrase that and say, you know what, let me just have conversations. Let me speak to people. Let me see what their real challenges are. And let's find some consistency to that. So now I can pick and choose and say, you know what? So you're experiencing that, you're experiencing that. I really like helping you, or I believe I can help you with that. Ah, but that's a slightly different topic. How can I take all of these? A bit like building this puzzle. How can I take the pieces that are missing, put them together and say, you know what? This is how I can help you. So for me, for example, losing weight, creating new habits, exercise, thought process, teaching, public speaking, all elements of my own life experience where I've grown and I've just lent into that space. How do I capture that? How do I label that? So that's the whole point of what we're trying to achieve with this. And for me, what I created was what worked for me. Okay, because I created a philosophy or a way of life which I genuinely believe and know to be true that can help anybody with anything. Because it's the intention is there, it's simple enough to the point where you could just model this into your life, and I will guide you, help you be consistent, help you be accountable to the point where you are now growing and you're leaning into that philosophy, but it's so adaptable to the point where you edit and change it so it works for you. So you effectively create your own. Because if I question you now, I believe you're a product of your environment growing up. No judgment, no right or wrong. So if you believe that to be true, and there's lots of reasons why, then the following question is, how many of your values you identify, okay, did you actually create or did you inherit? Yeah, think about that. Your values, are they yours or someone else's? Your identity, is it something you created or are you people pleasing? And there's no right or wrong. And my guess, as you look back and connect the dots, there are still huge elements of where we're leaning external gratification, where we're copying tradition, we're copying this idea, this belief that potentially doesn't work anymore because it's outdated. Yeah. I can't remember the line Vision said, which I think was hugely powerful and it just come to mind. Tradition, is it a promise or I can't remember the word. I'll find it and write it potentially in the comments. But it's this idea of is it oh it's going to come to me and I'm just going to randomly say it. But anyway, let's just move on. So they're the two major lessons I've had in life. Debt, career choices in the sense of a place where when I look back at my career, I had no direction, I had no intention, I just went with the flow. Okay, my intention or priority in life was to get drunk and have a good time. And as a default, what happened? I let life dictate where I went. I let life just choose what opportunities were there, if that makes sense. And if you're a similar path, you probably go to work and you think, you know what, I enjoy this, but I hate this bit. And I don't know anything about my job, or I don't know what the next step is, or if you've got similar patterns or thoughts, I would say that's because life is dictating where you are, dictating your job, dictating your career. And now we create awareness around that. It's an invitation to pause and start to make better choices. Choices that empower you to lean into your qualities, your strength, your purpose, your intuition, your power, your telos, and really just kind of lean into that space. And then the third thing was touching on what I just spoke about, this old beliefs, the amount of old beliefs that I had that were not empowering, that were not putting me first. Huge. So as soon as you start to create awareness around that and you go, whoa, let's change. Let's just think. I don't need to shout at anybody. I don't need to have disagreements. I just own me. I mean, honesty has always been one of my key values, and I still hold that like a badge of honor, even till today. But equally, the way that I used to be so passionate and, kind of really argue opinion to make sure that everybody agreed with mine or to highlight the fact they were wrong. I'm like, what a waste of energy. It's huge. If you've got an opinion, it's yours. You're entitled to it. Yes, we can have a conversation. Yes, we can try and offer different perspectives and we can offer different suggestions to the point where I'm giving you a different point of view. But your opinion is yours. You are you. You're unique. I don't need to change your mind. I'm just offering a suggestion to the point where I say, you know what, you do this, try doing it this way and see if that works for you. If it does, great. If it doesn't, no problem. With the idea and the intention that if you're doing whatever it is or you're living a life that you don't currently enjoy, unless you change, you're going to continue down that path. So that's where a slight distinction. It's about creating that safe space for people to have an honest conversation where sometimes they go, you know what? Actually, things aren't that bad. Actually, if I continue, I'm actually where I should be. Great. Continue that. Yeah. Well, how do we make it even greater? How do we go to the next step? Equally, the opposite. If things aren't going great, then let's change them. How do we change them? Making better choices. And that's what coaching, from my perspective, I'm not a big fan of labels. However, coaching, mentorship, teaching, counseling, same sort of umbrella, but it's all about creating a safe space where we can have a conversation and we can just create awareness, improve the choices that you make, so then we're empowered. And then you, by default, now just experience life and grow as a person. Simple steps. And it's that how do we get rid of the overwhelm? How do we remove all resistance, own it, show up for ourselves, be consistent, set intentions of how we want to choose, how we want to be, and create a structure because we are creatures of habit to the point where once we've got that core belief, those core systems and those core values of who you want to be, who you really are, and now just show up as that person. Give that to the world because when you're at your best, and you learn to start choosing to be like that more consistently, loving yourself, being proud of yourself, really feeling that connection, the world is going to be a better place. Not just for you, but everyone around you. I believe that to be true. I know it to be true. Okay. I know for a fact, hands on heart, that my children are going to have a much better future just because of the choices I've made over the last few years and how I choose to show up as a parent. Honestly, some of the conversations I have and some of the responses and some of the experiences that I've had now to, let's say, before, chalk and cheese, honestly. And I invite you to really kind of, if you are a parent, really own that and kind of really determine and define how you want to show up as a parent, what your actual roles and responsibilities are within that, let's say, label. Okay. So let's recap. Looking back, connecting the dots. So the major wins, growth mindset, children, inceptivism, major lessons, debt, career choices, old limiting beliefs, overcoming those. So then I'm just looking at the notes here again. So it was this idea of how do we position ourselves once we've connected the dots, okay, and we know what we're good at, and we know a little bit more about ourselves and what our offering is. Because there's three things here just to touch on. So you kind of go, well, what's the lessons here? So debt, career choices, old beliefs. You know what? If they're my lessons or my failures and I've overcome them, then surely I've got three great examples of teaching opportunities where I can help people who get into a debt. What does that feel like? How do you manage it? How do you overcome that? How do you avoid it? Okay. Career choices. If you've got a crap job and you hate it, let's have that conversation. Let's find a job where you can lean into something that you're really passionate and you can grow and you can see a future in. Huge. I've been there. Old beliefs. Oh, like I said, my purpose in life, growing up for a good decade was just getting drunk, having a good time. And, there's nothing wrong with that to a degree. But when your life starts to evolve and starts to change, and you get different responsibilities, different pressures, that doesn't necessarily work anymore. So I could flip all of those into opportunities, courses, conversations, experience. So it's huge, you know. And what were the wins? Well, they were the wins that I've had. And how do I leverage that? How do I leverage that experience, giving me the authority to know that, you know what? Growth mindset. I know what a difference it's made. So, you know what? I can lean into that. I used to feel like this, now I feel like that. And what was the mechanism? Because I changed the way I think. Simple. How do I invite you to do the same? Having children, how I change from that version of myself to lean into this role, lean into this leadership, into this, wonderful, creating a safe space, trying to pass on as much knowledge and encouragement and love and support, to my children. Huge. I've done that. Some people are just, soon to be parents or thinking about the idea of becoming parents. And now I can have that conversation. Inceptivism, which is what I am aiming to do, I am doing, is how do I give that gift to the world? And that's what I'm working on. And that's what these videos are all about. How do I create $100 million business or whatever it is, $100,000 business by creating something that changed my life and continues to do so and giving you an opportunity to do the same. So that's why it's important to connect the dots, but really create that awareness to say, okay, I've connected these dots, but how can I now leverage these dots to my advantage? So then it's this idea of, as I said before, we're positioning and we're trying to also create value. So how we position ourselves to the value that we're offering. Because people have problems, yes, but equally people are buying solutions. They're not interested in the how. The amount of times, and I'm guilty of this in the past, of talking about my program and my coaching and my this and my that. If you, Nobody's interested in that. Nobody is interested in that. That's just a default. Yeah. So if I say to you, you want to lose X amount of weight, you're not interested in how. You just want to know, can you achieve it? And how much is it going to cost and how quickly am I going to, am going to get there? You want to lose 10 pounds, you come and work with me, realistic, in 6 weeks, yeah, it's going to cost you this much, and you're going to be 10 pounds lighter. Done. I've got a few testimonials from clients that have gone through the same process. They're going to do the selling for me. If you like me, you like the way that we talk, we connect, then we're going to have a great time together. That's it. If I'm telling you about fasting and going to the gym and this and that, am I really just creating overwhelm and too much? Yes, there is a place for all of those things, but the idea is that let's just focus on the solution. Let's focus on how the value that I'm giving you. Let's just talk about the value. Let's just talk about that experience, what you're really going to feel like, what you're going to get, what's the outcome, what your life looks like when you achieve this goal. So, this led into once you've got that over, that kind of idea in your head, and you go, okay, fine. So how I position myself, how I show up, what coach I choose to be, or what business I'm trying to offer, what product I'm creating, that value. Okay. I'm going to position myself as I'm going to be able to create that opportunity for you, that solution. Yeah, because that's effectively any job, any career, anything you think about, anytime you get paid to do something, it's because you're offering a solution for someone else. Simple. So, who is it for? So, if we go back in and go, right, okay, so now I've chosen to be a business owner, a coach. In this example, say coach. Okay, so who is this for? Who is this for? Who am I really trying to help? And your immediate fault goes to everyone. Yay, I'm going to help everyone. And then you soon realize that not everybody wants your help. And also, if we're aiming for everyone, that's a really big market audience, and it's effectively unrealistic. Yeah. Think about some of the biggest brands in the world. Does everybody use their products? No. Majority, sure, but not everyone. Okay. I think this is interesting, a kind of spin on this. And just go with me on this, is this idea that if somebody's having a conversation, let's say we're doing a speech like this, and I'm just talking to as many people as I can. Okay. The audience are, if they've got the intention and they're showing up on purpose, fine. They're going to listen and they're going to take notes and they're going to be like, wow, this was amazing. But there's a huge portion of that audience who are just sitting there because they can, or just thought, you know what, it sounded interesting, but it's not really my thing. So out of an audience, let's say 100, you've probably got about 30 people who want to be there, 70 people that don't, or 70 people that aren't really that interested. Okay. Whereas if you now take that analogy of I'm now trying to help those 100 people. Okay. Whereas if I was now on stage and I'm talking to one person at a time and I'm just having a conversation about that one person that's got nothing to do with everybody else. Okay. There might be a buzzword or there might be something, but how many people are trying to eavesdrop on that conversation? How many people are being nosy and going, oh, I want to learn a bit more about that. I want to learn a bit more about that, which is interesting because I could be having the same conversation with 100 people, no one's really listening, or I can have a conversation with one person and everybody's trying to listen. So I've experienced that to be true. I'm guilty of that. How many times are you on I don't know, on transport going somewhere and you hear a conversation and you're like, oh, that's interesting. What's going on over there? Well, there's a bit of commotion. Oh, how do I get involved? How do I find out the details on that? And we gossip and we can't wait to tell somebody. It's interesting understanding on who we are as people, who we are as potential clients, the view that what would attract me, what would get me interested, and we'll kind of create that awareness around that space. So who is this for? And you go, okay, it could be for everyone, but more than likely it's not. And I also live in this world where, for me, this idea of creating a niche and an ideal avatar, yes, it is very market orientated. However, when you start, what do you need? You need people to talk to. So even if you don't believe in it, just pretend that you do and just go with it and lean into that space where I only want to talk to these people. And the more experience I have talking with these people and find out their problems, then I can start to solve those. Hopefully that makes sense. So it's this idea of we're aiming for what's known as the sweet spot. So it's about who and what. So who and what. And as they come across with those two circles, in the middle is that sweet spot. And that's what we're trying to create through this exercise, and that's what we're trying to understand. So, for example, you've got the person, that's the who, and the problem, that's the what. And some examples we have here. And this is an invitation, you can do this now with pen and paper. Just write down the who. So if you focus on feelings, emotions, problems, just write that down. So are they anxious? Maybe they lack confidence. Maybe they want to grow their business. Maybe their relationship's broken down. Maybe they're in debt. Maybe they don't know anything about taxes. Write down as many things in terms of that type of person. So not names, just the type of person. Okay? Once you've done that list, on the flip side, you are now going to look at the problem or the what. Okay, so is this idea, do they need an investor? Are they new mums? Are they young professionals? Are they couples? Are they athletes? What are they? Okay, so, that idea of what's the problem and who is the person. Hopefully, we'll explain that correctly. So, anxiety, investor, body confidence, new mums, business growth, young professionals. And then once we've got these two lists, let's say you do 20, 30 on each side. Now is a very simple idea of we're going to mix and match to create a desired outcome, if that makes sense. So let's say you've got debt or tax as a problem. Do I want to go and speak to an accountant? Or do I want to go and speak to an investor? Do I want to go and speak to a business owner? That could probably match up. If I'm anxious, do I now want to go and talk to a new mum? Not necessarily. If I'm anxious, do I want to go and talk to an athlete? Potentially. So you can see where you start to put these two together, the right who person and the right what being the problem, let's say, and we're trying to find that nice sweet spot. So have fun with that exercise. Let me know in the comments how you get on. And then once we've kind of got an overview of an idea now of um, a coach, let's say, um, and the problem, what it is that I do. So let's say, for example, relationship issues, divorce. Put them two together. Well, I know about relationships, know about divorce. Maybe I can create something about that. Or nutrition, fitness, weight loss. Can I put those two together? And it's just a game of, mix and match. This then led into this idea of who do you want to serve and getting a little bit more specific, leaning into the idea that we're going to create our ideal avatar. And once we've got that person, we're now going to focus our content, our what's the word, marketing, as if we're trying to just talk to that one person. Knowing that when we would talk to that one person, even if people are listening in, they kind of go, oh, that might work for me, as opposed to trying to talk to everyone, because then no one's listening. So the questions, and you can write these down as well, is give the person a name. So give the name an avatar. So for myself, it was just Seba. Yeah. So what does Seba look like? Okay. Second thing, age. So connecting the dots. When you're talking to people, what age bracket do you think you offer the most value to? So from my experience, more senior people, more elder, it takes a lot more hard work to change their beliefs, their mindset, because they've got this idea that they just know. They know everything. And I'm not saying that's true, that's just from my experience. Equally, if you're too young, I don't know if I'm qualified enough to understand what life is like for you, because the world is consistently changing. AI, technology, not sure that that mindset is there for me to support. Whereas equally, what do I feel most suits me would be where I was, let's say, 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, so mid-30s. Tick. I know what that's like. We're not too dissimilar in age. We're not too dissimilar in experiences to the point where I know that I can offer value to you. Yeah. Gender, for me, male, females makes no difference. However, from my experience, females tend to be more open to the idea of personal growth, more open to the idea of how do I you know, help, get help, ask for help to further myself, where men tend to be really stubborn and don't worry, I'll just figure it out on my own. And I'm a man and I'm weak, I'm not showing weakness and all that type of stuff. So it's a very different conversation. And you go through. Okay. So that's the kind of questions I want you to ask in answering this. Just be really honest with yourself because this is just for you. And we're just trying to create as much data or an ideal to the point where we can now leverage this and see what comes out. Okay, so the list, who do I want to serve, was name, age, gender, where do they live, what's their income, their marital status, do they have children, what are their hobbies, what do they watch on TV, who do they follow on social media. We're trying to get as much depth as possible. What are their big dreams, their big fears, their short-term goals, and ultimately their current frustrations? What's their current challenges? So, name, age, gender, where do they live, income, marital status, children, hobbies, watch on TV, follow on social media, big dreams, big fears, short-term goals, current frustrations. So I took all of this, and as I spoke to you at the very beginning of this, I asked ChatGPT. So I was working and leveraging AI to my advantage. Okay, so I'm just going to read out the answers that we created together. Okay, so I just put in the prompt. I'm going to ask you all these questions. Can you ask me them one at a time in turn and collate the data? So, what did I come up with? Age mid-30s to 50s, although this is not fixed. High achieving professionals, often in leadership or demanding roles. Mixed gender, through my examples, lean towards men who feel stuck or lost. Core identity, high functioning, self aware individual who feels lost beneath the surface. Okay, they've done all the right things, read books, chased success, held it all together, yet inside, they are living a life that is not fully theirs. They are fed up with pretending. They are open to something real and ready to explore that part of them that has been quietly whispering, this is not it. So if you feel like that, get in contact, okay? And we can help, I can work with you. But you see where I'm getting, okay? Answering all these questions, prompting, this is what is coming up. So where are they? A bit more defined. So they feel stuck or lost, can't quite name what that is or why. The tide of surface level fixes or being told just to change their mindset because it's not that simple. It's real deep internal work. Emotionally exhausted from holding it all together for everyone else. This idea of people pleasing, so work, family, image. It's tough, it's exhausting, especially when it's not you. Okay, I've been there. Trust me. Aware of what they want to change, yet unsure where to begin. And I think that's a huge one for myself. If I'm working with people, they need to already be on the ladder of personal growth, understand the value, start leaning into growth, knowing that they need to make better choices, they need to want to change, but they don't know yet where and how that looks like. We can have that conversation. They need to be hopeful, thoughtful, and quietly craving something deeper. Okay. What do they want? They want to feel like themselves again. They want to reconnect with who they are without the noise and external pressures. They want to stop being driven by external expectations. They want to learn how to listen, pause, listen to their inner truth. And once you find that space, that's where I'm making decisions from. Not here, not there, from here. And to finally do the internal work they have avoided because life is not just about coping, it's a choice on how we want to live. Okay? Then it came up with how they think and behave. So they are doers. They once connected to clarity, maybe have found they've lost their way. They value deep or depth rather over hype, honesty over motivation. They respond to new perspectives with a pause, not resistance. They are not afraid of questions. They are afraid of silence. When coached well, they take action between sessions and apply what lands. So that's how they are. And how do I recognize them? They say things like, I feel like I've lost myself. I know I need to change. I just don't know how. Everyone thinks I'm doing fine, but I'm not. I'm tired of doing what I'm supposed to do. Something feels off and I cannot explain it. Then they lean in when they hear things such as, what if this was never about fixing you? Let's pause for a second. You already know. I just help you hear it. So my role, I'm not a guru. I'm not pretending to be one. I am just that space where they remember themselves. So I'm creating that opportunity to really ask better questions, to really create silence, to really be heard. I'm offering a way of thinking that cuts through the noise. So through Inceptivism, which is my baby, let's say my philosophy, I help them think again, trust their truth, act from cause, not performance, reconnect with the part of them that feels silenced, and start again, but this time starting from within. Shift. So through that, answering these questions, leaning into ChatGPT, this is what we created. And once you've done that, there are a few other things. It's this idea of help statements, target market, but you need to be able to finish this sentence, which is I help who, so I help, and in brackets, who that person looks like, okay, to solve or achieve, and in brackets, what, so it's the outcome. And then the last bit is by, and then whatever your method is how. So I help solve by, if that makes sense. So if we go back, I help high functioning self-aware individuals who feel lost beneath the surface. Okay. How do I do that? By my simple steps, Inceptivism. So as you can see, even now, even myself in this video lacks a bit of clarity, needs a little bit more work. And we're continuingly to work together. Okay, so statement, I'm just going to put this in here. My I help statement is I help high functioning professionals who feel lost beneath the surface think again, trust their truth, and start over within so they can finally create a life that feels like theirs. Magical. Once you've done this, then this is the last step here is to really kind of create that awareness around, does this actually work? It kind of links in a little bit to the philosophy of Ikigai, the Japanese, training around purpose. But you ask yourselves questions, okay? So I think this is really important. So the first one is this? So start from the beginning. So you created awareness, you know who, you know what your offering is, you know how you're going to show up and present yourself to the world. So I'm a coach and I'm going to achieve this, and this is going to be the outcome. But to really drill that home, you really need to ask yourself, have you been through that yourself? Have you been through that experience? Because if you haven't, it's very difficult to lean into that space. I'm not saying it's something that you can't do. I would just say it's easier and it's more authentic to help speak through your experience, whatever level that is. So I would say that you need to kind of at least experience that first. Is it a significant accomplishment or struggle? So, feeling lost beneath the surface, I would say yes. So is it going to be life-changing for them to overcome that? Sure. So think about those. Do lots of other people go through something a similar experience? So basically what we're trying to say here is, have we got an audience? Have we got a broad enough, wide enough audience who've got a similar problem? So therefore I can offer my solution to the world and help as many people. Or am I only going to help one person? Your career is going to be short-lived. So you've got to think about that long-term vision. And can I offer value to the world? And is this something that people already spend money on? I think that's a huge question. So if you're creating philosophy and you're trying to create a product that nobody's buying, nobody wants, you're potentially going down a wrong hole. Yeah. But I don't know, let's say whatever the product is, let's say you're trying to create, or the course that you're trying to create, are people currently buying something or something similar? Fine, great. Then you know that people are willing to pay for that. So how do you change or tweak yours to the point where you leverage them to yours, knowing that people already buy? So coaching, people buy coaching all over the world. So if you want to be a coach, great. We know that people are buying. Okay. Is it timeless? Everybody always needs coaches. I don't think enough people in the world have coaching, so coaching would work. Is it global, all over the world? Yes. And if it's done well, whatever your service product is, if it's done well, can I charge my dream amount, my three zeros, four zeros, five zeros, whatever it is? Think about that. And if no to any of those questions, so is it something I've been through? Is it a significant accomplishment or struggle? Do lots of other people go through it too? Is it something people spend money on already? Is it timeless? Is it global? If done well, I could charge wherever I like for it. If there are all yeses, then I'd say you're in a great spot. If, however, and sometimes this can happen, you get a no, then I would say it's an opportunity to go back and tweak what it is that you're offering. And that's where we're at for today. So day four, a little bit of homework potentially, and let's see where we go from here. But I really appreciate your viewing, comments, follow, subscribe, all the fun stuff. Thank you very much for showing up, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.